Good morning. Namaskar. Welcome to this televised press interaction with Honorable Prime Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. My name is Harish Khare, Media Advisor to Prime Minister, and I'll be kind of notional moderator for this discussion. The word is very popular these days, notional. Couple of months ago, last September to be precise, the Prime Minister had interaction with the print media. This time we have invited some of the leading personalities of the television world, perhaps all the masters of the universe are here. We have a mix of national, regional, business channels, and we have invited some international channels also. The Prime Minister will have few opening remarks, and then the rules of the game have been explained to everybody. We'll go around the table, everybody gets to ask one question, and if you feel it necessary, one supplementary question. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure meeting you on this auspicious occasion when we are all celebrating the birthday of Hazrat Muhammad Sahib. Today is Eid, and on this occasion I would like to facilitate all our countrymen and women and extend to them my greetings. May this Eid bring added peace and prosperity to the people of India. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last couple of months, the media have drawn the country's attention to some aberrations, whether in the form of allocation of 2G spectrum, the Commonwealth Games, and more recently some developments in the space organization, Adarsh Society affairs. I think the media have played a very important role in drawing the country's attention to these issues which require corrective action. I wish to assure you, and I wish to assure the country as a whole, that our government is dead serious in bringing to book all the wrongdoers, regardless of their position they may occupy. However, I would like to say that in projecting these events, an impression has gone round that we are a scam-driven country and that nothing good is happening in our country. In the process, willy-nilly, I think we are weakening the self-confidence of the people of India. I don't think that is great, that is in the interest of anybody in our country. We have a functioning government, and whatever some people may say that we are a lame duck government, that I am a lame duck Prime Minister, we take our job very seriously. We are here to govern and to govern effectively, tackle the problems as they arise, and get this country moving forward on a pace of development which would do justice to the demands being made on the processes of governance. I wish to tell you that our economy is in good shape. We will have a growth rate of 8.5% this year, this fiscal year, and that the way India has come out and tackled the aftermath of international financial crisis, I think does our country a great credit. It is certainly true that in recent months, inflation and food inflation in particular has been a problem. We want to deal it in a manner that the growth rhythm is not disturbed. If we were concerned only with curbing inflation, I think we could have done it, I think, by pursuing tighter monetary policies. We could have, I think, brought about a situation where the price rise could be moderated. But if in the process, the growth process gets hurt, I think that would not do our country any good. And we are trying to deal with inflation at a time when we don't have all the instruments at our command, in the sense that we have no control over the international events. We are now increasingly open economy, and the oil prices are rising, the food prices are rising, commodity prices are rising. We have to deal with inflation despite an adverse international environment, and you have my assurance that we will succeed. And at the end of this fiscal year, I think the inflation rate should come down to no more than 7%. Also, I would like to mention that internal security of the country has been a great concern. I wouldn't like to say that we're not worried about terrorist act. We are better prepared to deal with acts of terror and to prevent many potential terrorist acts. And I think the government deserves some credit. In the Northeast, things are getting normalized. Talks are going to begin with ULFA, and ULFA leadership, having decided to give up the path of violence, is a welcome development which will have far-reaching consequences for the growth processes in our northeastern states. In the same way, in Jammu and Kashmir, after some turbulence, there are, I think, signs that we are getting the situation under control, and that the people of Jammu and Kashmir can look forward to orderly development of development processes. A number of committees are working to chart out that path. Dr. Rangarajan is preparing a report on the employment aspects, and I do feel that if that report is implemented, it would bring a fresh ray of hope to the young people in Jammu and Kashmir who are eagerly searching for productive employment opportunities. As far as the external situation is concerned, I think this fiscal year, all the top leaders of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council have visited our country. This has never happened before. And the world today appreciates that India, a democracy, a functioning democracy, committed to the rule of law, committed to respect for fundamental human rights, is trying to seek its economic and social salvation in the framework of democracy and rapidly expanding economy. 2, wherever I go, people marvel that there is a country like India, a country of 1 billion people, functioning democracy, committed to the rule of law, committed to respect for all fundamental human freedoms, and yet managing to grow at the rate of 8 to 9% per annum. People marvel that this can be done. And whatever our own domestic weaknesses, I think we shouldn't create an atmosphere whereby the nation loses its sense of self-confidence. I think the media has an obligation, the government has an obligation, the opposition has an obligation that we work together in a spirit that India as a whole has to march forward. Parliament has not been allowed to function for reasons which I am not able to understand. But we are making an honest effort to ensure that the next session of Parliament will be an orderly session. We have important legislation apart from the budget to put before Parliament, and talks are going on with the opposition parties to ensure that whatever our differences, Parliament should be allowed to function normally. So I wish to mention to you that in reporting the affairs of our nation, we mustn't focus excessively on the negative features. Important though it is that the government should deal with them, to take effective action, and you have my assurance that wherever such corrective action is required, our government will take that action and bring the wrongdoers to book. With these words, I once again welcome you to this session of interaction. The media has, as I said, a very important role to play in a functioning democracy that India is. And let us work together to revitalize the spirit of rejuvenation, the spirit of self-confidence, that we have problems, but we have also credible mechanisms to overcome. We shall overcome, we shall prevail. We will provide our country a functioning, effective government, and that's what I wanted to say in the very beginning. Now the floor is entirely yours.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Aaj Tak, Mr. Arun Puri.
Mr. Prime Minister, firstly, thank you for inviting us here for this interaction. I hope you'll have more of them. I'm sorry to take you back to the 2G scam, although you've said that that we should not be a scam-oriented coverage. And you've taken some very positive steps, as you've just assured us, for getting the wrongdoers of the 2G scam. But just for my better understanding of how we got into this situation, I wanted to understand that you had warned Mr. Raja in November 2007 to consider auctioning the 2G scam on 2007 rates. And he actually disregarded your advice. And later on in 2008, the companies which got the spectrum were sold and at large sums of money, and those values are very much in the public domain. In spite of all this, you appointed him again as the telecom minister. So I'd like to know, what was your thinking behind this? And if I may add another one.
I think one at a time. I can't handle too many. Well, let me first deal with what I said to Mr. Raja in a letter that I wrote to him on the 2nd of November 2007. I mentioned in that letter number of concerns which were being expressed, some in the press, some telecom companies used to come and mention them to me. And I listed a number of issues, and I said to him that you must look into these issues and ensure that they are dealt with in a fair and equitable, transparent manner. One of the issues I had asked him to look into was the possibility from legal and technical angle of having an auction of spectrum. Mr. Raja wrote back to me almost on the same day, our letters crossed, and he said, I have been absolutely transparent in my dealings. I will be so in the future, and that you have my assurance that I have done nothing and I will do nothing which will not be consistent with the promise that I am making. Now, as far as auction is concerned, he came back to me and he said, auction is something which has not been suggested by TRAI. Also not suggested by the Telecom Commission. And he also said that if we have auction, it would not give a level playing field for the newcomers, because the existing players have got their spectrum free of charge until 10 point something megahertz. And therefore, he said, the TRAI's advice, the Telecom Commission's advice, and his own view was that auctions are not the way forward, at least for 2G spectrum. And he also mentioned in a subsequent letter that he is agreeable to auction 3G spectrum. But with regard to 2G spectrum, he was very clear that we should stay with the then existing approach. And this was also discussed with the Finance Ministry, because in terms of the Cabinet decision of 2003, the pricing and allocation of spectrum was to be settled between the Ministry of Finance and the Telecom Department. Initially, of course, the Finance Ministry did ask for a high price of spectrum, but after many discussions, I think the two ministries agreed that as far as 2G is concerned, we have to live with the present system, particularly with regard to the amount of spectrum that is built and embedded into a license agreement. So this is the background why I did not proceed further with this matter of pricing of spectrum, because if the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Telecom both agree, and they have the obligation in terms of the Cabinet decision of 2003 to decide that matter, and also since TRAI is a expert body, Telecom Commission has experts. If all of them were of the same view, I did not feel I was in a position to insist that auctions must be insisted.
If I may just, can I just follow up?
Yes.
Because the other part of the question was the sale of these companies, this spectrum to companies soon after, even before rollout. So there was a huge sum of money there sitting there, and the scam was staring at everybody in the face.
Well, I do not know, frankly speaking, what was the motivation of people who got spectrum. But I know that as far as the basic policy is concerned, that I thought was, as it was then the prevailing practice, and Raja was continuing that policy, that as far as the who gets license, the first come first served policy, how it is implemented, that was never discussed with me. Licenses were not a matter which ever got referred to me or to the cabinet. That was a decision exclusively of the telecom minister. Now, subsequent events have shown that people to companies sold their equity, but I was told that they have not sold it to shareholders, they have sold it in a manner to dilute the equity of the promoters. Now, if they have to roll out, they require money, and that money can be raised either by way of borrowings or by way of diluting equity, getting more people. And therefore, at that stage, I did not think that I should intervene in that affair. Now, the other thing that you have mentioned about Mr. Raja being inducted into the cabinet, well, I cannot divulge what went on in the processes of cabinet formation, but I would like to mention that we are a coalition government. In a coalition government, you can suggest your preferences, but you have to go by what the leader of that particular coalition party ultimately insists. And Mr. Raja, along with Mr. Maran, was the choice of the DMK party. And as of that moment, I had no reason, frankly speaking, to feel that anything seriously wrong had been done. And therefore, I did not feel that I had the authority to object to Mr. Raja's entry, because I quite honestly, in May 2009, although complaints were coming in, but complaints were coming from all sides, and some were from those companies which had not benefited, some were from those who have benefited but not benefited adequately, and therefore I was not in a position to make up my mind that anything seriously was wrong with Mr. Raja's doing at that time.
Thank you. That was very exhaustive, sir. AsianNet.
Thank you, Prime Minister. My name is Prashant Raghuvansham. I am from Asianet Television. 5 states are going for elections soon, and you are just back from Kerala. What is the feedback you got about the chances of your party in Kerala? And to add to that question, a hot subject which is now debated before the elections is corruption in judiciary. There are allegations even against a former Chief Justice, Mr. K.G. Balakrishnan, and Justice V.R. Krishna says that you are silent on this matter. So how will you react to these things?
Well, first of all, I just come back from Kerala. I do believe that the Congress party has a very good chance to return to power. I think the winds of change are blowing that way, and I think this change will materialize. With regard to corruption in judiciary, corruption in any walk of life, whether it is judiciary, executive, legislature, should be a matter of concern to all thinking people in our country, and therefore I am not second to anyone in seeing that if there is corruption, whether it is in judiciary or in executive or in other walks of life, we must get rid of that.
Bloomberg, please.
Good morning. I'm Pranjal Sharma, Bloomberg TV. To go back to your opening remarks, there is a lot of negative issues
that the media has been focusing on, but the sense I have is that that's because there's not a lot of constructive, positive agenda, especially on the economic reforms front, which seem to be coming out of the government. When the new cabinet was formed, every minister came out with a 100-day agenda with a very clear timeline, but a lot of that was cancelled. After that, we haven't got a sense that the big reformist wave is coming from UPA too. Whatever steps have been taken by the UPA are either stalled at the parliament level, stalled by the states, stalled by opposition parties, or even in some cases by the industry. My question, sir, is that, sectors like inflation are because there are critical reforms in agriculture and water which are pending, and nothing has happened to show that things are moving on that front. And that's leading to a cascading effect which nobody knows better than you. Have we lost the will as a country to take hard reformist decisions?
No, we have not lost will. I think we will persist. There are difficulties when Parliament is not allowed to function, when the opposition-led states, for example, do not wish to cooperate with the path-breaking reforms of the ushering in a goods and services tax. This is a reform which is needed. This would, I think, make our tax system, if the reform comes about, I think, in envy of the world. But the opposition parties, particularly the BJP party, has taken a very hostile attitude, and the reason that has been given, quite frankly, I cannot, I think, mention it in public. They say because you have taken some decision against a particular person who was a minister in Gujarat, you must reverse it, or you... I don't want to add further on.
So, but the issue of
Thank you.
economic agenda, sir, that's not coming.
Well, I think the agenda is there, and we are, for example, working on a food security bill. The Right to Education Act is now a reality. The ICDS reform is a reality. There have been reforms in the National Rural Health Mission. Same way, I think we are going to have a fresh wave of infrastructure investment with the help of the new PPP model. These are not big reforms, and I sincerely hope that in this current budget you will see, for example, I think a clearer picture of the reform agenda that our government has. We have not given up. We will persist. There are difficulties, and particularly when Parliament is not allowed to function, I think Parliament is not able to perform its essential function, being a forum for legislation. I think the country, you all would agree that that's one area where I think our nation has to rethink how our parliamentary institutions should function.
Mr. Sardesai, CNN IBN.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. You've said that you would like Parliament to resume functioning in an orderly manner. Are you therefore now ready on your own part to agree to the opposition demand for a joint parliamentary committee into the 2G scam? Because there's a feeling that there was a reluctance both on your part and the part of the government because you did not want to appear in front of a JPC in the context of the 2G scam. And as a supplementary, sir, through these months of these scam-tainted months, have you ever thought of quitting or of actually being so frustrated that you feel you're surrounded by a lot of corrupt people in your cabinet, and therefore have you ever thought of throwing your hands up and saying enough is enough?
Thank you.
The first point that you have raised about my opposition to the JPC, of being afraid to appear before it. I am not afraid of appearing before any committee. The PSC is the Joint Parliamentary Committee presided over by a very senior member of the opposition. I have publicly declared that I am willing to appear before the PSC. So I am not afraid of appearing before any committee.
Including a JPC, sir?
Including a JPC. And this is entirely wrong impression that I was the one who was blocking the agreement about the JPC because I did not want to appear before the JPC. I have always said that as Prime Minister, my conduct must be like Caesar's wife, above suspicion, and I am quite prepared to appear before any committee that may go into this.
So I had a supplementary. Did you at any stage think of quitting? And
No.
do you concede that there are a lot of corrupt people in your cabinet who you have not been able to act against? And that,
Well, I
that has
think-
led you to believe enough is
Well,
enough.
I think in a coalition government, there is a coalition dharma, and obviously things are not entirely, I think, the way I would like them to be. But quite frankly, I never felt like resigning because I have a job to do. The country voted our party to be the leader of the UPA coalition, and we have a lot of unfinished business to accomplish, and therefore I have never thought in terms of giving up halfway, and I will stay the course.
Al Jazeera.
Thank you, sir.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I'd like to talk about the current unrest in the Middle East. Do you have any worries that the unrest that we're seeing in the Middle East right now might resurface here in India, in any restive region, be that Kashmir, the Northeast, or any areas under the Maoist rebels as well? And my supplementary is also that the Arab world is witnessing a revolution at the moment. Do you support the new movements that are coming up in Iran, in Yemen, in Algeria, or in Bahrain?
Well, whatever happens in the Gulf or West Asia, including the countries that you have mentioned, is a matter of concern to us. We have 5 million Indians working in the Gulf country, and if peace is not prevalent, if orderly processes of management of the economy and polity break down, that could affect this vital community of Indian citizens who are working and contributing to the development of the countries of West Asia. Now, the other question that you have asked, whether there is a danger of something like that happening in India, no, because India is a functioning democracy. People already have a right to change government. We have a free press. I think even when they write things with which the government doesn't agree, I think they are free, absolutely free to pursue the path that they want to pursue. And therefore, there is no question that things that have happened in Egypt or in other Arab countries can be replicated in India.
And sir, do you support the current revolution happening in the Middle East amongst
Well,
those countries?
let me say, if the people of Egypt want to move towards the processes of democratization, they have our good wishes. And that's true of all countries. We are a functioning democracy. Though we do not believe it is our business to advise other countries, we welcome the dawn of democracy everywhere.
Doordarshan, Ms. Neelam Sharma.
जी नमस्कार, नीलम शर्मा, डीडी न्यूज से। सर, वो कहते हैं गिरते हैं शाह सवार ही मैदान जंग में, वो तिफल क्या गिरेंगे जो घुटनों के बल चले। सरकार की अपनी चुनौतियां हैं और सरकार उन चुनौतियों से निपटने की पूरी कोशिश भी कर रही है, और भ्रष्टाचार इस समय सबसे बड़ी चुनौती आपका बना हुआ है। लेकिन लोग ये देखना चाहते हैं कि भ्रष्टाचारियों को सजा मिले। लोग ये चाहते हैं कि वो अपने जीवन काल में ऐसा होते हुए देखें। क्या आपको नहीं लगता कि इस समय इस संदेश को देने की सरकार की तरफ से सबसे बड़ी जरूरत है?
नहीं, मैं आपके माध्यम से भारत की जनता को ये वादा देता हूँ कि हम पूरी कोशिश करेंगे कि जिन लोगों ने कुछ गलत बात की है उनको जरूर उनकी कड़ी सजा मिलनी चाहिए।
Thank you. ETV.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. I am Sri Harsha from ETV Group. I have a question about this Telangana vexed problem. It has been lingering for quite some time. In fact, there is a complaint that the Congress seems to be undecided on the issue. And where does the Congress stand on this, and what is the government policy? Because the Sri Krishna Committee has submitted its report. till now, the process of dialogue is continuing, but no decision has been taken yet.
Well, I think this is a complicated issue, and we are trying to evolve a consensus. The Home Minister had one round of meetings with all the political parties. He will call these political parties again, because the first round was just handing them over Sri Krishna Committee's report. Now they are studying it. After that will come the phase of consultations with all political parties who are active in Andhra Pradesh. That process must be allowed to be pursued to its logical conclusion.
If there is no consensus, Mr. Prime Minister, what will be the government stand?
Well, I can't, I think, answer that hypothetical question. I think we'll cross that bridge when we reach there.
Thank you.
Kolkata TV.
This is Subhashish Moitra from Kolkata TV. Sir, for the last few months, UPA government is facing two major issues, that is price rise and corruption. My question is, A, can it affect the alliance or can it break the alliance UPA from within? And B, is there any chance of reviving relation with the left?
Well, I think the left is no longer a part of our coalition. So I think I don't know how to answer your question. As far as the coalition partners presently are concerned, I think ours is a strong coalition. Our allies are as committed to strengthening the hands of this coalition government as anybody else. So there is no danger that there might be any other inner tensions which might lead to breakup of this coalition. We are a strong government, we are a strong coalition, and our coalition partners are with us wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Sanjay, Awaz.
Thank you, sir. CNBC आवाज से संजय. लॉन्ग टर्म फंड की ज़रूरत है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए. काफ़ी दिनों से डिस्कस हुआ है कि कुछ करेंगे, लेकिन सबसे अब जो जिस ग्रोथ की आपने अभी बात की कि कुछ इन्फ्लेशन हम इसलिए अलाउ करेंगे क्योंकि ग्रोथ चाहिए, तो ये एक पेंडिंग एजेंडा है. कुछ स्पेसिफिक कदम उठाने जा रहे हैं आप जिससे कि लॉन्ग टर्म फंडिंग हो सके, क्योंकि सिर्फ हमारे रिसोर्सेज से और बैंकिंग से तो नहीं हो पाएगा.
No, first of all, I think we must, create a viable corporate debt market. I think that's the direction in which we must move. The other is to mobilize funds from outside. I think there has been a discussion about the creation of an infrastructure development fund. I think some discussions are going on, and most probably I think the finance minister will outline, something in that direction.
सर, एक सप्लीमेंट्री और इन्फ्लेशन के इशू पे एग्रीकल्चर का दूसरा स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म जो आपने 91 में सिलसिला शुरू किया, वो ओवरड्यू है, बहुत रुका हुआ है. बातचीत तो हुई है, कुछ कॉन्क्रीट मेजर आप करने वाले हैं क्योंकि उसके बगैर नहीं होगा.
The basic issue there is the reform of the marketing system. Now this is in the domain of the state government. We have been discussing with the state government, with the chief minister, that they should do something in that area. It is an essay in persuasion, and somewhere we are succeeding, but somewhere we are not succeeding. So we must persist. That's the only way in a federal polity that we are to move forward.
Thank you. NDTV, Mr. Roy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for holding this interaction. So you have now 3.5 years to go before the next election. Normally this first period after an election is a honeymoon period and most enjoyable and most decisions are taken. It's not been that case. It's been pretty tough these first year and a half. Because you are facing kind of double incumbency going into the next election. Attacks from the opposition and a lot of random attacks from your party as well. Double incumbency is the worst way to face a second election. Opposition attacks you can't control. But within your party, does it sadden you to see these attacks repeatedly happening, popping up? Would you be ready to be the prime ministerial candidate, if asked, for the next election, given these internal attacks as well?
Well, I think it's too early. I think we have still a long way to go. I think I have to complete this term. As far as the next term is concerned, I think it is too premature for me to speculate who will be the candidate.
But does it sadden you that these, and will you ask for them to, if you're going to continue to lead the party into the next election, would you like to see at least a cohesive
Well,
party?
I would, of course, like a cohesive party to back the government, and I do not get the feeling that that cohesion does not exist. I think we are a democratic party. There is a lot of internal discussions, but when decisions are taken, I think our party stands united in support of the government.
Right. One supplementary, sir. You were talking about lame duck and unfair criticism and this sense of drift. That you're the most honest Prime Minister surrounded by a very dishonest administration. How will you change this drift, this sense of drift? How will you signal it to people? Are you going to have like a major reshuffle at all?
Well, I said that after the budget session of Parliament is over, there will be a restructuring, a reshuffle of the cabinet, and I think I will get back to, that task once the budget session of Parliament is over.
Right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Anuradha?
मॉर्निंग सर, अनुराधा प्रसाद फ्रॉम न्यूज़ 24। सर, मेरा सवाल बहुत सीधा है। पिछला जो बजट सत्र था वो जेपीसी के डिमांड के कारण नहीं चल पाया था। क्या आप लोगों की कोई ऑपोजिशन से बात हो गई है? अगर बीजेपी ये कह रही है कि नथिंग शॉर्ट ऑफ अ जेपीसी, तो उस पर कोई सहमति बनी या नहीं बनी? क्या ये इस बार का बजट सेशन शुरू होगा, चलेगा?
पूरी कोशिश की जा रही है कि कोई ना कोई रास्ता निकल पाए, और मुझे आशा है कि ऐसा संभव हो सकता है।
सर, मेरा एक दूसरा क्वेश्चन है कि भारत में वर्ल्ड कप, क्रिकेट वर्ल्ड कप हो रहा है। पूरा देश ये चाहता है कि टीम इंडिया जीते। आप क्या चाहते हैं?
I am one with the wishes of my countrymen and countrywomen. I think that India should win this gold cup.
आपका कोई फेवरेट प्लेयर है सर?
Well, I wouldn't like to say that I choose among the players, but there is no doubt that I have some preferences which I wouldn't like to mention because
Thank you very much.
CNN, Ms. Sarah Saider.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. I have a question about food inflation. Since food inflation is at double digits and has fluctuated, how do the poor benefit from the amazing GDP numbers of what you're saying is going to be 8.5 when they have trouble buying food?
Well, let me say that the food inflation certainly hurts the poor. The poor laborers spend nearly 60% of their income on food items, and therefore when food prices rise disproportionately, that does hurt, I think, the poor most. Now, but at the same time, you must appreciate that we have put in place social safety nets. The biggest single social safety net is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, which guarantees to each laborer who offers himself for employment a daily wage of 100 rupees, to which we have said that we will adjust this wage with every rise in the consumer price index. So therefore, I think although inflation does hurt, we have put in place social safety nets which were not there 6 years before. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't work together to improve, I think, the situation. Furthermore, I would like to mention that as far as the food grains distributed through the public distribution system are concerned, there has been no change in prices since the year 2002. In the last 8 years, we have kept these prices constant, so therefore the way the public distribution system operates, together with the real wage protection in view of the inflationary trends, these are the two most important means in which we are trying to insulate the poor from the ill effects of food inflation. Would you like to defer?
First of all, thanks very much for inviting regional players like us and not just the mainstream media. Going back to your opening remarks, you have mentioned about the Northeast. You have said that the peace process with the Alpha has just begun. My question is the government of India committed to a time-bound solution to the Alpha problem? The question is because the NSCN peace talks has been dragging. It has entered into the 14th year now without any tangible solution in sight. So is the government of India going to solve this Alpha problem within some timeline so as to give a message to other militant rebel armies operating in the Northeast? And also your thoughts on the elections due in Assam in 2 months.
Well, I think our government in Assam has done very well. I think the fact that the peace process is also going forward is an added factor which would strengthen the ruling party in Assam. And as far as the fixing of a time limit is concerned, I think the process has just started. It would give me the greatest happiness if we can say that we can complete it immediately, but I know that we are dealing with difficult problems. It is an essay in mutual comprehension. We have just now started talking to ULFA. They came and called on me. I was very happy with what they told me, and I assured them that the Government of India is absolutely serious to find an honorable solution to all these issues. But it will be wrong on my part to say that right now I can fix the time limit. That will be our effort.
Will the Congress make a hat-trick in Assam this time?
Pardon?
Will the Congress be able to make a hat-trick in Assam for the 3rd consecutive term?
Well, I hope. I think they do.
Thank you. Sahara Group, Mr. Upendra Rai.
सर मैं उपेंद्र राय सहारा न्यूज नेटवर्क से सर ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स ने फैसला किया है कि करप्शन से लड़ाई के लिए जरूरी है कि मिनिस्टर्स का डिस्क्रिशनरी कोटा खत्म किया जाए। मैं ये जानना चाहता हूं कि किस तरह के डिस्क्रिशनरी कोटा को खत्म करने की बात हुई है सर।
एक इशू है जो कांग्रेस प्रेसिडेंट ने अपने भाषण में ऑल इंडिया कांग्रेस कमेटी के सेशन में इस बात की चर्चा की थी। उन तमाम विषयों पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमने एक ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स को ये काम सौंपा है। प्रणब मुखर्जी उसके चेयरमैन हैं और एक इशू उसमें ये भी है कि डिस्क्रिशनरी पावर्स जो मिनिस्टर्स की हैं उनको ख़त्म किया जाए। ना इस बात पे विचार करना होगा कि क्या कुछ किया जा सकता है, क्या कुछ किया नहीं जा सकता। अभी 60 दिन उनको दिए गए हैं रिपोर्ट देने के, तो मैं उस रिपोर्ट का इंतजार कर रहा हूँ।
मेरा एक सप्लीमेंट्री क्वेश्चन भी है सर। इन 2009 जो फॉरेन एफडीआई फंड करीब $14 बिलियन आया था, जबकि 2010 के पहले 8 महीने में केवल $14 बिलियन तक ही ये सिमट के रह गया। कहाँ गलती हुई?
गलती हमारे यहाँ नहीं हुई। इंटरनेशनल एनवायरनमेंट ऐसा है कि फंड्स इमर्जिंग मार्केट्स पिछले दिनों में तमाम इमर्जिंग मार्केट से फंड वापस गए हैं। तो वी आर today functioning in an environment where what happens outside affects us, and therefore it is not easy to say that I think what happens to the fund flow is entirely a function of our policy. It is also a function of what policies our other friends, particularly the developed countries, adopt. And it is that process that is way. But I do agree that we need to strengthen our resolve to create a favorable environment for larger flow of funds from abroad.
Thank you.
Star News.
मैं स्टार न्यूज से शाजी जमा। हाल के वक्त में कई गंभीर आरोप भ्रष्टाचार के आपकी सरकार पर लगे। कभी आपको ऐसा लगा कि प्रधानमंत्री होने के नाते इसकी नैतिक जिम्मेदारी आप पर आती है?
मुझे अपनी जिम्मेदारी का एहसास है, इसमें आपको कोई शक नहीं होना चाहिए। लेकिन मेरी कुछ मजबूरियां भी हैं। कोलिशन पॉलिटिक्स में बहुत कुछ सहना पड़ता है। या तो फिर ये हो कि हर 6 महीने में नए इलेक्शन कराए जाए, ऐसा भी करना उचित नहीं होगा। इसलिए some compromises have to be made in managing a coalition government, and those issues therefore I think have to be viewed in the context in which no single party has, I think, emerged which can rule by itself.
एक सवाल और, आपका एक बड़ा हिस्सा आपकी जिंदगी का राजनीति से बाहर गुजरा है। आज के हालात में, आज के राजनीतिक माहौल में कभी आपको ऐसा लगा ये राजनीति आपके मिजाज के मुताबिक नहीं है?
नहीं, इसमें बहुत सी चीजें हैं जो मेरे मिजाज के साथ मिलती नहीं है, लेकिन I have looked upon life as one long continuous learning and relearning process, and for me I think it has been a great educational experience from civil service from academic world to the political world. I think it is a process of learning, and I certainly, I think, relish that experience.
Thank you. Times now.
Mr. Prime Minister, you say you have to make compromises. There can't be any compromise with corruption.
No.
And there cannot be a compromise even if you're running a coalition government. And sometimes when corruption happens right under your nose, Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke about the coverage in the media. There is a general view that had the Devas-ISRO deal, not the scam, not been exposed by the media, it would have gone through. My specific question to you on the Devas-ISRO deal is this, that there are people in your government, allegedly people in the Prime Minister's office, there are people in the close bureaucracy who were in the know about the deal after the decision to blacklist that company was taken in July. And now we know that they were still in backroom talks with the same blacklisted company till a few weeks back. In that context, Mr. Prime Minister, there are people who are in the know about a scam of a deal, they delayed action in the deal, and they continued some backroom talks, and we were told these talks are normal. Mr. Prime Minister, is it normal to continue backroom talks with a blacklisted company in a scam like this?
There have been no backroom talks. I think I have not met anybody myself, and the decision of the Space Commission to annul the deal was taken on the 10th of July. I believe that's the
2nd of July.
2nd of July, the Space Commission took a number of decisions, of which annulment of the contract was one of them. The Department of Space was asked to take action on all the 5 decision points that emerged from the Space Commission meeting. The issue of how to annul the contract required consideration by legal experts, and the Law Ministry was consulted. A decision had to be taken on whether to annul the contract using Article 7C or Article 11 or both read together. Eventually, it has been decided that the government should take a sovereign policy decision regarding the utilization of space segment capacity, which uses S-band spectrum having regard to the country's strategic requirement. I would like to mention that although the Space Commission took a decision to annul the contract in July 2010, the actual cabinet note was received from the Department of Space in the PMO only in November 2010, and even then there were a number of, I think, consultations to polish it up, and at the most you can say that between November and now, I think the Prime Minister's office has got this note for the cabinet. Decision has been taken now, I think, but it requires consultation.
Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, the talks were not with you, but by people, with people within your office and after November. That's just a point I want to make. Do you buy the zero loss claim in the 2G scam?
No, no,
and you promise.
Goswami, please don't. This is not an interrogation of the Prime Minister. Please, you don't jump from one subject to another. The Prime Minister is trying to answer your question on ISRO business. Let him finish. Show him the courtesy. Show him the courtesy.
Let me say,
I was just following up.
After the receipt of the note for the cabinet from the Department of Space, for preparing the cabinet note, a number of ministries were consulted, and the Department of Space itself took 6 revisions of the note before finally submitting it for approval. It is certainly true that a number of letters were received by members of the Space Commission, including officials in the PMO, from Devas after August 2010, including as late as a few days ago. Letters were also received in the PMO from the US Chamber of Commerce, but no action was taken on any of these letters, which were merely filed. At no stage was Department of Space asked by the PMO to comment on the points made in these letters. They had no impact whatsoever on the processing of the case. On the contrary, PMO followed up its verbal reminders to the Department of Space by sending a letter to the Department of Space in October 2010 seeking a status of follow-up of the decision taken by the Space Commission in its July 2010 meeting. The matter was never raised by the German Minister of Foreign Affairs during his meetings with me in New Delhi on 18th October. I think some people have reported that German Foreign Minister raised it with me. There is no, I think, such a meeting. The meeting did take place, but he never mentioned anything. It is a fact that meetings did take place between Devas and officials of the Department of Space, ISRO and Antrix after July last year, since the agreement had not actually been annulled. But no further actions were taken by the Department of Space or ISRO to implement the agreement. No assurance was given in contravention of the recommendations of the Space Commission. Though there has been some delay in processing, this was only procedural. The fact is that the contract was not operational in any practical sense, and there was no question of diluting in any way the recommendations of the Space Commission. All the consultations are now almost complete. The ministries concerned have all had the opportunity to express their views as is required before any policy decision can be taken by government at the level of the cabinet. And also because this issue concerns many other ministries apart from the Department of Space. These include Department of Telecommunication, Defense, Home, Finance and Law. The matter is expected to be put before the Cabinet Committee of Security for a final decision. So that's the state of affairs. There has been no effort in the Prime Minister's office to dilute, I think, in any way the decision taken by the Space Commission in July 2010. On that, I would like to assure you, and through you, I would like to assure the country.
Thank you. Sun News.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Prime Minister. This is Ramakrishna from Sun TV. I'm having a question that Tamil Nadu fishermen who are fishing in the sea, they are facing continuous problem by the Sri Lankan. So yesterday also the Sri Lankan Navy abducted 106 fishermen from the sea.
I have been told that 118 fishermen have been taken into custody. We are taking up this matter with the Sri Lankan government. We take a very serious view. I think only earlier this month, Foreign Secretary was sent to make a strong démarche to the Sri Lankan government that this sort of behavior is not acceptable among neighborly countries.
So one small supplementary, along with the Kerala state, Tamil Nadu is also going to face the assembly election. What is your assessment on Tamil Nadu election?
Well, I am not an astrologer, but I do hope that the ruling coalition will win.
Thank you, sir.
Prime Minister, I'm Sanjoy Majumdar from the BBC. Prime Minister, this week the British government announced that it's going to give India £1 billion in aid over the next 4 years. That's about $1.6 billion. Given that your economy is growing at over 8%, as you pointed out, that it's probably already bigger in size or will soon be bigger in size than the UK, and that many Indian companies are investing heavily in the UK, why do you still need this international aid?
Well, I think India still is a poor country. And it is certainly true that if aid is not forthcoming, we will not collapse. But I think we have the capacity to make good use of development assistance. And if some friendly country offers, I think, large amount of money by way of concessional development support, I don't see reasons why we should decline to accept it.
And a supplementary, Prime Minister, are you concerned that the international image of India is taking a beating because of these scams, and that it may soon be seen as a country that's no longer good to do business in?
Well, let me say that this sort of atmosphere is not good. It saps our own self-confidence. It also, I think, spoils the image of India. And therefore, I urge each one of you that in reporting these events, while opinions are a matter of speculation, facts are sacred. And facts should not be distorted. Opinions, you can, I think, one can freely express views which are one's held conviction, but we owe it to our country that when it comes to reporting the country's affair, at least when dealing with the facts, I think they should be as objective as is possible.
Thank you. Last question. जी न्यूज़.
धन्यवाद प्रधानमंत्री जी. मैं सतीश के सिंह जी न्यूज़ से. सबसे पहले तो मेरा ये सवाल प्रधानमंत्री जी कि आपने ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस क्यों बुलाई. दूसरी चीज ये है कि हमारे इस सवाल के दो हिस्से हैं. पहला तो ये है कि आप कहते हैं कि जो भ्रष्टाचार का जो मुद्दा है उसके ऊपर आप डेड सीरियस हैं, लेकिन ये क्यों होता है कि मीडिया जो ये चीजें निकाल के भ्रष्टाचार के लाता है तभी सरकार की नींद खुलती है. और जैसे ये एक लोकपाल का मुद्दा है, बहुत दिनों से लंबित है. ब्लैक मनी का जो इशू है, इस पर सरकार ने क्या किया जब तक ये मीडिया में नहीं आया. स्टेट फंडिंग ऑफ इलेक्शंस की बात होती है, इस पर सरकार ने क्या किया. एक ये सवाल है. दूसरा जो इसका हिस्सा है कि आम धारणा ये बनी है कि आपने भी माना कि भ्रष्टाचार के कई चीजें हुई हैं और उस पर सरकार किसी को छोड़ेगी नहीं, लेकिन जब देश में महंगाई बढ़ती है, आम आदमी की सरकार है आपकी और उसकी कमर टूटती है और कराहता है, तो उसको लगता है कि एक तरफ भ्रष्टाचार है और दूसरी तरफ महंगाई है. आने वाला बजट है उसमें कुछ मरहम लगाने के लिए या भ्रष्टाचार के ऊपर जो एक कॉन्क्रीट स्टेप्स है, डेड सीरियस होने के नाते जो आप कह रहे हैं, उस पर आप क्या करने पाएंगे. और अंतिम कि क्या आप यूपीए 2 और यूपीए 1 के मुखिया होने के नाते सार्वजनिक रूप से आप अपनी तरफ से कोई गलती मानेंगे जो गलती हुई.
देखिए, मैं ये नहीं कहता कि मुझसे कोई गलती कभी नहीं हुई, लेकिन जैसा कि प्रचार किया जा रहा है, मैं उतना कल्प्रिट नहीं हूँ जितना कि दिखाया जा रहा हूँ, यही मैं कहना चाहता हूँ. और जैसा कि मैंने पहले कहा कि a group of ministers is looking into all aspects of how to deal with corruption. Also, it is not certainly true that we have not dealt with black money problem. The effort is on to sign treaties or to revise treaties which would enable us to get information from the affected countries where this money is stored. We will take all possible measures to control this menace of black money, to bring back to our country that money that is legally ours.
वो बजट में कुछ हम मरहम की उम्मीद कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, बजट के बारे में तो मैं
एक सरकार के मुखिया होने के नाते कोई स्पेसिफिक नहीं कुछ।
देखिए, बजट के बारे में मैं कुछ नहीं कहना चाहूँगा। बजट सीक्रेट्स तो फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के पास ही होते हैं। मुझे उनका कुछ ज्ञान जरूर होता है, लेकिन ये उचित नहीं होगा कि मैं पब्लिक में उस बात पे चर्चा करूं। जब बजट आएगा तो आप देख लेंगे उसमें।
Thank you, gentlemen. Prime Minister, you want to say a few?
Mr. Khare, since the Prime Minister...
No, I'm sorry. I think we have already gone
Mr. Khare,
one
one news point.
No, I'm not going to...
Sir, just two very small. The Home Minister of the country, Mr. Chidambaram, spoke of a governance deficit. Your Telecom Minister spoke of a zero revenue loss on 2G. These are two statements which have been made, which might give us news points as to where you stand. Where do you stand on a zero revenue loss in the 2G scam? Where do you stand on the Home Minister talking of a governance deficit? Do you agree with, where do you stand on these two comments? Ethical and governance deficit.
Well, obviously, I think if these events have taken place, I think they do bring out the weaknesses in processes of governance, or you may call them ethical deficit. I think I don't deny that we need to improve, I think, the quality of governance. That's not subject which divides me and other members of the cabinet. Now, with regard to the loss of revenues, it is very much dependent on what is your starting point. There are various estimates, but you have to assess what is the right magnitude after asking yourself what was the right price. Now, I have explained to you that the then existing policy of the government was that auctions should not take place. And if auctions are not taking place, then what is the basis for you to calculate the loss? I am not in a position to say that there is a foolproof method in which one can determine the extent of the loss. I think it's very much a function of what is your starting point, and also depends upon an opinion. We have, for example, a budget which gives the subsidy for the food 80,000 crores per annum. Some people may say these food grains should be sold at market prices. So will we say then, because they are not sold at market prices, because you are giving them subsidy, there is a loss of 80,000 crores. We give subsidy to fertilizers, which cost about 60,000 crores every year. People can say that these fertilizers should be priced at the market rate. So would you then say that there is a loss of revenue of 60,000 crores in fertilizer sales? We subsidize the price of kerosene to an extent, I think, which is greater than many other subsidies. That imposes burden on our oil marketing companies. Should we say then that because we give subsidies for kerosene sales under public distribution, that there is a loss of revenue? So
Mr. Prime Minister, are you disagreeing with what the CAG said, or are you agreeing with, sir, what your telecom minister said of a zero revenue loss versus a 1,70,000
Well, I think the CAG himself has said this is a presumptive loss, and therefore it depends upon which, I think, assumptions you make. I wouldn't like to enter into a...
Sir, can I just... Mr. Prime Minister, very
we have already run into an hour's time.
Mr. Khare,
Mr. Goswami.
Mr. Khare, it's a very important subject, and people will benefit because of what the Prime Minister said. Allow me one question, sir. Allow me one question. It's a different subject. In October, you said 90 days for the CWG probe. It's far more than 90 days, Mr. Prime Minister. We know no chief conspirator. All the smaller functionaries were put in and they have been let off. They have not even been charge-sheeted. Do you feel disappointed with the progress in the CWG investigation which let the nation down in October, given your own promise?
Well, I think we are trying our very best, but we have to do the due process of law. We are a country where the rule of law prevails. Sometimes, for example, this is very frustrating, it takes time, but you have my assurance that the wrongdoers will not escape this time.
Thank you,
Just
Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
one last
Thank you,
question, sir.
gentlemen.
So one last question. You mentioned that it's very difficult to calculate a loss, like in food grains or in you're not selling at market price. There's a subsidy in fertilizers. That indicates there's a subsidy in the allocation of 2G licenses. It's a similar issue. Were you subsidized? And sir, in retrospect, do you wish you had forced your hand and said, yes, it should have been an auction? Do you think it should have been an auction?
I think you have to take a decision at that particular time. Of all the decisions that I take, if 7 out of 10 turn out to be correct, the shareholders of a normal corporation will say, a job well done. We are living in a world of uncertainty. Many things ex ante you think do not turn out to be exposed. And therefore there is a gap between ex ante thinking and what has emerged as a reality in subsequently.
So let's end on a lighter note. What's your biggest regret and your biggest achievement you believe in UPA 2? Biggest regret and biggest achievement?
Well, I think it is a big regret that these things, these irregularities have happened. They should not have happened, and that has certainly, I think, given me, I think I am not very happy about these developments.
An achievement?
Well, achievements, the very fact that despite a very unfavorable international economic environment, we managed to ensure that our economy's growth rhythm is not adversely affected.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.